my name is Louise, and today we're going to talk about reaching the patient limit within Dawn AC. Now, the Dawn AC system is sold on a basis of usage initially, so the idea is the more users and the more patients that you have in your system, the bigger the license fee. Obviously, the level of support gets bigger, the bigger the system is. When you first get the Dawn system, it comes with a set number of concurrent users, and it also comes with a set number of active patients allowed. And it's the active patient count that we're going to talk about today. When you start obviously using the system and you're adding new patients into the system and dosing the ones you have, you need to be aware of your active patient limit. On the latest front screens of Dawn, we have included the number of patient licenses that you're allowed on your system. So you can see in my system I have 320 active patients allowed. What it also does is show us the number of active patients we've got currently. So I can see that, for example, on my system I have 320 allowed and I have 309 patients on there that are active. What it also does is it tells us the number of unused licenses left. By default, if the number is 25 or less, you get this warning in red. So my system's actually flagging up to me at the moment. I've only got 11 active patients left to enter, so I'm near my limit of active patient licenses. First thing to really note is that if you do see this message in red, you are coming towards your active patient limit. So at this point, our suggestion would be to speak to the lead user of the system or a system manager or your practice manager just to inquire about getting more active patients, because if you are going to need to add more active patients in the future, we're going to need to increase this limit for you. So that's the first step. Now, you might have noticed that we're saying active patients here. This is only active patients. So, for example, you might have 10,000 inactive patients on your system and 200 active patients. So those inactive patients will not count towards your patient limit. So any patient that's completely inactive in Dawn is just in the background, not counting towards that final limit. If, however, you get to the stage where you don't notice this warning here and you do reach your patient limit, you A, won't be able to add any new patients into your Dawn system, but B, you also won't be able to dose your existing patients as well. So it's really important that you know how to get out of that situation. The fact that Dawn won't allow you to dose any existing patients in Dawn when you've hit your limit is something that we're looking at changing in the future. But currently, we have a few ways of actually getting out of that scenario, because what we really need to do is get you to the point where you can dose the patient you have. So let's go through the various points we can check. If you reach your patient limit in Dawn, first of all, do you have any active test patients on your system? So when you first had your system set up, you might have entered like a dummy patient, a Mickey Mouse or a test. Someone to get familiar with the system. Is that patient still in Dawn? And if they are they active? Because at this point, this would be a prime patient to inactivate. And once you inactivate one patient, you will then be able to go on and dose the ones you have. So first of all, any active test patients, can those be inactivated? If you don't have any test patients in your system, the next thing that we need to check is, do you have any patients that have an inactive treatment plan but an active patient status? For those of you that use Dawn, you will know that when you're actually inactivating your patient, you need to first of all stop the treatment plan, then you need to inactivate them on the personal tab. And it can be quite easy to stop the treatment plan but forget to inactivate them on the personal tab. Now, if they're still active, they are still counting towards your patient limit. So, let's say in this instance, I want to have a look and see if I've got any patients in that category. The easiest way of finding those is to go into list views and check the status list, which I've got up here. Now, on the status list, there should be a filter on there called active with inactive treatment plan. Now, if you don't have that filter, please do call the Dawn support team and we can make sure that gets in there for you. And this is going to show us all of the patients that have an inactive treatment plan but still have an active patient status. So I can see I have a list of patients on here in various states. If I check this first one here, I can see that their treatment plan is stopped, but they're still active on the personal tab. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into that patient screen. I can see up at the top left here, their treatment plan is stopped, but if I check out the personal tab near the bottom, I can see they're still active down here. So this patient's still counting towards my limit. So if I simply deactivate that patient and hit OK to the Are You Sure, that patient becomes completely inactive. That patient no longer counts towards my patient limit and I now have space to enter another one if needs be, or dose the ones I've got. So if I close out that patient disappears from the list. So that's the first list to check. If you check that filter and you don't have any patients in that state, the last thing that will be worth checking is your suspended list. Now, if a patient is temporarily stopped, so for example, a patient might have told you that they're going on a holiday for 6 months, so you've actually suspended them. Now, we might have some patients in there that have been suspended for years that you can simply just inactivate. There's nothing lost in inactivating those patients. If they do obviously then come back again, you can reactivate them, so they don't go anywhere, you don't lose them. So last thing to check, if you haven't got any patients in that state, let's check our suspended patients. Any of these actions, by inactivating these patients, we then free up the space to be able to dose the patients we've got, and depending on how many you've inactivated, also add new patients in there as well. If you've checked all of the filters, you've checked your test patients, and there's nothing in there that we couldn't possibly kind of inactivate, then please do call the support team and we can get the problem resolved for you as quickly as we can.